The chandelier above the dining table hummed softly, the kind of sound you only notice when the room has gone dead quiet. My fork hovered midair, a piece of overcooked chicken trembling on the prongs, grease cooling as my parents' words sank into my skin. "You work while your sister enjoys," my father said calmly, slicing his steak. "That's just how this family functions." My mother didn't even look at me. She dabbed her lips with a napkin and added, almost bored, "If you don't like it, Addison, leave." Leave. The word hit harder than any slap. My chest tightened, and I could hear my pulse in my ears, loud and furious. Across the table, my sister Lily leaned back in her chair, scrolling on her phone, the glow lighting her smirk. Designer sweater. Fresh manicure. She hadn't worked a single day in her life. I was 24 and paying the mortgage. The house smelled like rosemary and money, my money. I'd worked double shifts at the logistics firm, nights and weekends, answering emails at red lights, skipping meals so I could wire transfers on time. Every bill, every renovation, every vacation Lily posted online with captions like, "Blessed life," had been funded by me. I slowly set my fork down. My hands were shaking, so I folded them under the table. "I pay for this house," I said quietly. My father finally looked up. His eyes were cold, dismissive. "You live here. That's your responsibility." Lily laughed. Actually laughed. "Don't be dramatic, Addie. You're good at working." I'd be miserable doing that. Something broke inside me then. Not loudly. Not all at once. It was more like ice cracking under deep water. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, sharp and ugly. My mother sighed like I'd spilled wine on the rug. "I will leave," I said. My voice sounded calm. Too calm. "But don't call me when things fall apart." My father waved a hand. "You'll be back. You always come back." I smiled at him. That was the last thing I said before walking out into the cold night, the door closing behind me with a soft, final click. They thought I was bluffing. They didn't know I'd been planning my escape for months. I slept in my car that night, the leather seats stiff and unforgiving. Rain tapped against the windshield, rhythmic and relentless. I cried once, silently, then wiped my face and opened my laptop. You see, while I was just working, I'd learned things. I managed accounts. I handled payments. I saw patterns. I knew where every dollar came from and where it went. The house wasn't fully paid off. The business my father bragged about at family gatherings? It was drowning in debt, quietly kept afloat by my income and my credit. And Lily's allowance. It was being routed through an account in my name. They needed me far more than I ever needed them. So I stopped answering calls. I rerouted my direct deposit, froze the accounts I legally controlled, filed the paperwork I'd already prepared, transferring liability right back where it belonged. I moved into a tiny apartment that smelled like fresh paint and freedom. 3 weeks later, my mother showed up at my door. She looked smaller somehow. Older. Her perfume was the same, but desperation clung to her like sweat. "Addison," she whispered. "We need to talk." I let her sit on my couch. I poured her water in a chipped mug. I listened while she cried about missed payments, about Lily being so stressed, about my father's blood pressure. When she reached for my hand, I pulled it away. "You told me to leave," I said. "So I did." She swallowed hard. "We didn't think you meant it." I stood up and walked to my desk, opening a folder. I laid out copies of documents, loan agreements, account statements, signatures. "You used my name," I said softly, "without my consent. That's fraud." Her face drained of color. "I reported it," I continued. "Yesterday." The silence was deafening. A month later, the house was foreclosed. My father's business collapsed under an audit. Lily moved in with friends who slowly stopped answering her calls. Family members who once praised my work ethic suddenly remembered my name. I watched it all from a distance, a strange calm settling over me. The final twist came on a bright Tuesday morning when I walked into my new office, sunlight flooding through the windows. My name was etched on the glass door, Addison Reed, Operations Director. The company that had acquired my father's failed business? They'd hired me. Turns out they'd been watching me for years, impressed by the numbers I kept alive single-handedly. As I sat at my desk, my phone buzzed. A message from Lily. Can we talk? I didn't realize how much you did. I stared at the screen, then turned my phone face down. At dinner, they told me to work while my sister enjoyed. Don't like it? Leave. So I did. And when I left, I took everything they stood on with me. Except this time, the life I built was finally my own. The chandelier above the dining table hummed softly, a thin electric whine that crawled under my skin. It was the kind of sound you only noticed when the room had gone quiet in a way that felt intentional, like everyone had decided, without saying it, that this was the moment I would be put in my place. My fork hovered midair. The chicken on my plate had gone cold, its rubbery texture already ruined, grease congealing under the yellow light. My mother had cooked it, but I'd paid for it, just like I paid for the plates, the table, the house, the electricity buzzing overhead. You work while your sister enjoys, my father said, cutting into his steak with slow precision. His voice was calm, practiced, the voice of a man who had never worried about money because someone else always did that part for him. That's how this family functions. My mother finally looked at me then, her eyes sharp but tired. And if you don't like it, Addison, she said, pressing her napkin to her lips, you're free to leave. Across from me, Lily leaned back in her chair, scrolling on her phone, the glow lighting up her flawless skin. She wore a sweater I'd bought her last month, something about manifesting abundance stitched across the front. Her manicured nails tapped the screen as she smirked, not even pretending to hide it. Leave. The word didn't echo. It detonated. My chest tightened so fast I thought I might choke. My heart slammed against my ribs, loud enough that I was sure everyone could hear it. I stared at my parents, searching for even a flicker of doubt, a sign they might take it back. There was nothing. I was 24 years old, exhausted beyond words, and paying for everything. The mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, Lily's credit card, my father's temporary loans, my mother's shopping sprees she justified as stress relief. I worked nights at a logistics firm, days bleeding into each other until time stopped feeling real. I answered emails in bathroom stalls, signed contracts while eating vending machine dinners, skipped sleep so deadlines wouldn't collapse. I'd stopped buying new clothes years ago. Stopped seeing friends. Stopped dreaming. And this was what I was worth. I pay for this house, I said quietly. My father looked up then, his eyes hard and annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. You live here, he replied. That's your responsibility. Lily laughed. A sharp, careless sound. Don't be dramatic, Addie. You're good at working. I'd literally die if I had to do that. Something inside me fractured. Not loudly. Not in a way anyone else noticed. It was more like ice cracking deep underwater. Silent. Irreversible. I pushed my chair back and stood. The scrape against the hardwood floor sounded violent. Final. My mother sighed, already irritated, as if I'd spilled wine instead of my entire life. I will leave, I said. My voice didn't shake. That scared me more than if it had. But don't call me, I continued, looking directly at my father, when everything falls apart. He scoffed. You'll be back, he said, waving a dismissive hand. You always come back. I smiled. I walked out into the night with nothing but my phone, my laptop, and the weight of every unpaid thank you pressing on my spine. The door closed behind me with a soft click. No one followed. No one called my name. The cold air burned my lungs. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my fingers went numb. Rain streaked down the windshield, blurring the house into a warped reflection, like it was already dissolving. That night, I slept in the driver's seat. My neck stiffened, my back screamed, and I cried exactly once. No sobbing. No drama. Just silent tears slipping down my face as I stared at the ceiling and let myself finally feel it. Then I opened my laptop. Because while they thought I was just working, I had been learning. I handled accounts. I processed payments. I filed reports. I knew which debts were real and which were lies held together by confidence and my credit score. I knew my father's business wasn't surviving, it was drowning. I knew the house wasn't paid off. I knew Lily's allowance was being funneled through an account in my name. They hadn't just used me. They'd buried themselves inside me. So I stopped answering calls. I redirected my direct deposit, froze the accounts I legally controlled, filed paperwork I'd quietly prepared months earlier, transferring financial responsibility back where it belonged. I moved into a tiny studio apartment that smelled like paint and dust and freedom. The first week was terrifying. I ate ramen on the floor and slept with my laptop beside me. But every morning I woke up lighter, like gravity had finally loosened its grip. 3 weeks later, my mother showed up. She stood in the hallway outside my apartment, shoulders slumped, mascara smudged. Her perfume, expensive, familiar, hung in the air like a memory trying to crawl back inside me. "Addison," she whispered. "Please." I let her in. She sat on my couch, clutching her purse like a lifeline. I poured her water into a chipped mug and waited while she cried about overdue notices, about Lily's anxiety, about my father's blood pressure. When she reached for my hand, I pulled away. "You told me to leave," I said. "So I did." Her mouth trembled. "We didn't think you meant it." I walked to my desk and opened a folder I'd been waiting to use. Loan agreements, account statements, signatures I recognized all too well. "You used my name," I said softly, "without permission. That's fraud." Her face drained of color. "I reported it yesterday. The fallout was spectacular. The house went into foreclosure. My father's business collapsed under audit. Lily burned through friends and sympathy until both ran dry. Family members who once praised my selflessness suddenly remembered my phone number. And then came the final twist. The company that acquired my father's failed business? They hired me. They'd been watching me for years, impressed by how I'd kept everything afloat alone. On my first day, sunlight poured through the windows of my new office. My name was etched on the glass door in clean, permanent letters. Addison Reed, Operations Director. My phone buzzed. "A message from Lily. I didn't realize how much you did." I turned the phone face down and leaned back in my chair, finally breathing freely. At dinner, they told me to work while my sister enjoyed. "Don't like it? Leave." So I did. And when I left, I took the foundation with me, because it was always mine to begin with. Years later, I drove past that old house without slowing down. New owners. Fresh paint. No trace of me. I didn't feel anger anymore. Just relief. Funny how they thought I was replaceable, disposable, weak. The truth was simpler and far more devastating. I was the engine. And once it was gone, everything they built collapsed exactly the way they deserved.